On December 22, 2025, an explosion in southern Moscow killed a senior Russian military officer in what Russian authorities are calling an assassination. Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov, who led the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian General Staff, died after an explosive device detonated beneath his car early that morning. The blast struck as Sarvarov was leaving a parking space on Yasenovaya Street in Moscow around 6:55 local time. Russia's investigative committee, the federal body that probes serious crimes, has opened a criminal investigation and classified the incident as a murder. The device appeared to have been placed under the vehicle, and authorities released footage and images showing the wrecked car at the scene. Officials have signaled that one key line of inquiry is whether Ukrainian intelligence services were behind the attack. Although no independent confirmation of responsibility has been made and Ukraine has not publicly commented, this incident comes amid an ongoing Russia-Ukraine conflict that has seen multiple high-profile killings of senior Russian military figures. According to investigations and reporting, this is not the first time a higher-ranking Russian officer has been killed in a bomb attack inside Russia's capital region. Authorities in Moscow have dispatched forensic teams and law enforcement to the scene, tightening security and trying to piece together how the attack was carried out. At this stage, public statements from Russian officials emphasize both the severity of the act and the need for a thorough investigation as tensions continue to run high in the broader geopolitical landscape. Chapter I. The man and the moment. A routine morning in the southern part of the capital city turned deadly when an explosion ripped through a parked car. This was not a random blast. It was a targeted incident that claimed the life of a senior Russian military officer, Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov. Lieutenant General Sarvarov was serving as the head of the Operational Training Directorate of the Russian Armed Forces. General Staff, a high-ranking position responsible for preparing and training army personnel. At approximately 6:55 local time, Sarvarov was observed leaving a parking space on Yasenovaya Street in southern Moscow, entering his vehicle, a Kia Sorento, when the explosion occurred. Russian investigators later confirmed that an explosive device had detonated beneath the vehicle. Security camera footage released by investigative authorities showed the aftermath. The wrecked car with visible damage consistent with an explosive blast, and emergency crews arriving on the scene. Law enforcement immediately cordoned off the area as forensic teams began collecting evidence. Russian authorities, including the Investigative Committee of Russia, the federal investigative body, opened a criminal case into the incident. Initial statements from the committee indicated that multiple leads were under examination, including the possibility that Ukrainian special services were involved in the planning and execution of the attack. However, no official claim of responsibility had been made by any group at that time, and Ukrainian government officials did not comment publicly. Sarvarov's death was quickly confirmed by authorities after he succumbed to injuries sustained in the blast. He was 56 years old at the time of his death. Official statements noted he had been a participant in military operations in various theaters, and his career spanned decades of service. This event was noted by international media not just as a violent incident, but as part of a pattern of attacks that have targeted senior Russian officials since the start of Russia's full-scale invasion of Ukraine in 2022. Independent reporting highlighted that Sarvarov's killing was the latest in a series of high-profile assassinations and attacks inside Russia. Among earlier incidents cited by international news agencies was the December 2024 killing of Lieutenant General Igor Kirillov, who was killed in Moscow by a bomb hidden inside an electric scooter placed outside his residential building. Russian investigators said that device detonated as Kirillov left for work. Ukraine's security service, SBU, publicly claimed responsibility at the time, stating the action targeted a general they described as a war criminal. In April 2025, another senior officer, Lieutenant General Yaroslav Moskolik, died in a suspected car bombing outside Balashikha. a suburb of Moscow. Russian authorities opened a murder probe, describing the explosion as caused by an improvised explosive device, though the investigation did not publicly confirm responsibility. These earlier events provide context for Sarvarov's assassination, illustrating a series of security breaches that have reached deep into Moscow and challenged the effectiveness of existing protective measures around high-ranking officials. At the time of this attack, investigators were examining forensic evidence from the blast site, interviewing eyewitnesses, and reviewing surveillance footage to piece together the chain of events that led to Gen. Sarvarov's death. Analysts observing the situation noted that the killing of a general within the heart of the Russian capital underscores the evolving nature of the conflict, where frontline battlefields are no longer the only arenas of violence. The reach of the war appears to extend into cities and residential areas, creating both strategic and security implications for all involved. In Chapter 2, we will explore the official investigation, what authorities are saying about who might be responsible, and how global reactions have shaped the narrative around this shocking assassination. Chapter 2. The investigation begins in the hours following the explosion. Russian emergency services sealed off the area in southern Moscow where the blast had occurred. Fire crews extinguished the burning vehicle. Paramedics confirmed the death of the occupant at the scene. Soon after, Russia's investigative committee, the country's main federal body for serious criminal cases, announced that it had opened a criminal investigation into a suspected murder. Officials stated that early evidence indicated the explosion was caused by an improvised explosive device placed beneath the vehicle. Investigators began working to determine how the device was installed, when it was planted, and who may have been responsible. Surveillance footage from nearby buildings and traffic cameras was collected and reviewed. Forensic teams examined fragments from the vehicle and surrounding area, searching for traces that could identify the type of explosive used. Authorities did not release details about the device's construction, citing the sensitivity of the investigation. Russian law enforcement agencies also began questioning witnesses, including residents of nearby buildings and individuals who may have been present shortly before the blast. Throughout the day, officials emphasized that the investigation was ongoing and that no conclusions would be announced prematurely. Official statements and security response government representatives described the killing as a targeted attack rather than a random act of violence. Security measures were visibly increased in parts of Moscow following the incident. Police patrols were reinforced, and additional checks were reported near government and military facilities. While authorities acknowledged that several possible motives were being examined, they avoided naming specific suspects or organizations in initial public statements. State media reported that investigators were considering whether the killing could be connected to the broader geopolitical situation surrounding Russia's ongoing war in Ukraine. However, officials stressed that no claim of responsibility had been confirmed, and that speculation should be avoided until evidence was verified. International attention. News of the killing quickly spread beyond Russia's borders. International media outlets described the incident as one of the most serious security breaches in Moscow involving a senior military figure. Analysts noted that assassinations of high-ranking officials inside major cities are rare and carry significant symbolic weight. Foreign governments did not issue immediate official responses, but the incident was closely monitored by security and diplomatic observers. Some commentators highlighted that attacks away from active combat zones can complicate already tense international relations. What investigators have not said, importantly, investigators did not publicly identify those responsible. They did not release names of suspects. They did not confirm whether the attack was planned domestically or from outside the country. And they did not provide a timeline for when findings would be made public. This absence of detail reflects the controlled approach authorities often take during high-profile investigations, a pattern under scrutiny. While investigators focused on the immediate evidence, Observers noted that this killing occurred amid a broader pattern of attacks on Russian military figures since the start of the Ukraine conflict. Russian officials have previously accused foreign intelligence services of involvement in similar incidents. In some earlier cases, responsibility was later claimed or suggested, but in this instance, no such confirmation has been made. For now, the Sarvarov case remains officially unresolved. As investigators work behind closed doors, the impact of the assassination extends far beyond the crime scene. In Chapter 3, we examine the broader implications, what this killing means for security inside Russia, for the military leadership, and for a conflict whose reach appears to be expanding. Chapter 3: Impact, Implications, and an uncertain aftermath. The killing of Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov did not end at the blast site in southern Moscow. Its effects extended far beyond the damaged vehicle and the sealed-off street. For Russian authorities, the assassination raised immediate questions about internal security, protection of senior officials, and the evolving nature of modern conflict. Security concerns inside the capital Moscow is one of the most heavily monitored cities in the world. Senior military and government officials are typically surrounded by layers of security, surveillance, and routine protective measures. Yet, despite these precautions, a high-ranking general was killed in what authorities described as a targeted attack. This fact alone prompted renewed scrutiny of existing security protocols. While officials did not publicly acknowledge failures, analysts noted that such an incident inevitably forces a review of how movements of senior personnel are tracked and protected. In the days following the attack, Russian media reported heightened security measures around military facilities and government buildings. Law enforcement presence increased in sensitive areas, though officials did not specify how long these measures would remain in place. Impact on the military establishment. Lieutenant General Sarvarov held a senior role within the Russian General Staff. His position involved oversight of training and operational preparedness, functions central to the effectiveness of the armed forces. While the Russian military has not commented publicly on how his death might affect internal operations, the loss of a senior officer is significant in any military system. Historically, such losses prompt internal assessments and temporary restructuring until responsibilities are reassigned. Russian officials have remained cautious in their public messaging, emphasizing continuity and stability rather than disruption, a broader pattern recognized by observers. International observers and media outlets placed the assassination within a broader context. Since the start of the war in Ukraine, several senior Russian military figures have been killed in attacks both inside and outside combat zones. Some of those incidents were later claimed by Ukrainian intelligence services. Others remain unresolved. The Sarvarov killing added to this list, reinforcing the perception that the conflict's reach is no longer confined to frontline areas. Analysts noted that such incidents can serve both tactical and symbolic purposes, though no official determination has been made regarding intent in this case. Diplomatic and international reactions. Despite the seriousness of the incident, foreign governments largely refrained from issuing immediate public statements. This restraint reflects the sensitivity surrounding assassinations involving senior military figures. Diplomatic observers indicated that such events are closely monitored, even when not publicly addressed. The absence of public reaction does not signal indifference. Rather, it underscores the complexity of responding to incidents tied to an ongoing international conflict. What remains unknown? As of now, several key questions remain unanswered. Who planned the attack? How was the explosive device placed without detection? And whether those responsible will ever be identified publicly. Russian investigators have not released detailed findings. No suspects have been officially named, and no court proceedings have been announced. This lack of resolution is not unusual in cases involving national security. Some investigations unfold over months or years. Others remain classified indefinitely. A shift in perception beyond the investigation itself. The assassination has altered perceptions. It demonstrated that high-ranking officials are not immune to violence, even within a tightly controlled capital. It highlighted the blurred line between battlefield and home front, and it underscored how modern conflicts increasingly involve covert actions, intelligence operations, and targeted attacks far from traditional war zones. Closing reflection for now. The case of Lieutenant General Fanil Sarvarov remains open. The investigation continues, and Moscow moves forward under heightened vigilance. What happened on that Monday morning serves as a reminder that in times of conflict, the consequences are rarely confined to distant front lines. They follow the conflict home.